Dang, there we go. All right. Anybody want to say what an algorithm is? Well,
I mean, it is.
it just is. It's just something that is. Yeah. Okay.
Like a set of instructions.
A set of instructions. That's a great way to do it. Right here, I Googled it, and Google says it's a process or a set of rules to be followed in calculations or other problem-solving operations, especially by a computer. Yeah. Another way to think of an algorithm is how to do something that you've already figured out how to do. You know, how do you do this thing? I've got an example. You probably don't have it written down, but if you were doing American Dental Association recommended dental care, you might do the following to get ready for bed. Get a little piece of floss your teeth, and then brush your teeth. Well, no, get out the toothbrush, put the paste on the toothbrush. I mean, you can get very detailed, and then rinse and spit and put it all away. We're going to talk about some algorithms in software. Now that we have loops, we can do a lot of more interesting things than just if statements. Think about how you might solve this problem. How do we analyze a string and report back how many times a particular character is found in the string? So I could say, hey, write code that looks at a string and tells me how many times the letter X is in there. Can you think to yourself how you might do that? Matthew. Yeah, for loop. For loop is a great idea. These are the steps I would do, and then I'll show you actual code. I'd create a count variable and put 0 in it. That's important, right? If you're going to count something, you have to put 0 into it before the loop starts. And then I'd do a loop starting at 0, going up to 1 less than the length. And I'd use a for loop variable and substring to access each character. And then I would check if each character was the one we were looking for. And if it was, we'd add to that number, and then we'd report the number. You're going to have the slide deck in a second. So here's one way to do it. Assume that str and target are both already have stuff in them. So here's my count variable. And here's int I equals 0. Michael. I less than str.length. So if substring I comma I plus 1 dot equals target, then we add 1 to the number, and then we print the number. So that's an algorithm, because I could say, hey, write code that tells me how many times the letter A shows up in this thing. And then you'd be like, oh, okay, I guess we just did that. And it's, remember, I comma I plus 1 grabs that single character at index I. If you had to be checking for a longer word, you could do I comma I plus 2 if it was a 2-character expression or something else. Here's another example. Write a method that returns true if at least one letter of a string is uppercase, false otherwise. So think about how you might do this if I asked you to do this without showing you first. No, don't answer yet. Thanks, Matthew. But think about it, everybody. I'm giving you a string. I'm asking you to tell me if there's at least one uppercase letter. Greg?
Maybe like set a variable equal to 1, then have it check that index of that variable. So like index, like substring 0, and then it keeps repeating this by adding 1 to the variable.
Yeah, so that's a for loop. Here's one way to do this. I put it in a method. So public static Boolean has a capital. It receives a string. Here's the count variable. And then here's the variable Greg mentioned. We're just doing the I thing again, 0 up to 1 less than the length. And then I'm grabbing the current letter, and I'm saying, hey, if letter dot to uppercase dot equals letter. So I'm making it uppercase, and then checking if it's equal to the non-uppercased version. That means it was already uppercase. Then we add 1. What are you doing, Chad? It's very distracting. So anyway, and then this returns true if there's at least 1, and returns false if it's still 0. You can do this a lot of different ways. This is, if I ask you to write a method, you can look at the header of the method, and that tells you what's supposed to happen. Don't worry about the static part, but the Boolean means you have to return true or false. If it said string, you'd be returning a piece of text. If it said int, you'd be returning a number. And if it says void, then you'd be not returning anything. Maybe you'd be printing something. Here's another way to do it. I made a Boolean variable called found capital, set it to false. And then I did all the same stuff. And if I ever found a capital, then I set that variable to true, and then I just return that variable. So that's another way to do it. Here's another way to do it. I'm just going to return true. If I find one, I stop checking. I only care about finding one. So as soon as I find one, I can return true, and the whole thing's over. This is more efficient. It doesn't go through the whole string. If the first letter was capitalized, it wouldn't be checking any other letters. I mean, for our purposes, the speed or efficiency isn't really our top goal. But okay, another example. Do you think you could reverse a string? So I send you cat, and I want tack bat. Here's one way to do it. I make an empty string, and then I do that for loop. I'm starting, in this case, at the end. So I say I equals str.length minus 1. That's the last character. And keep going as long as I is greater than or equal to 0, but subtract 1 each time. I grab the character and add it to my empty string. So I'm just putting the letters on from the end to the beginning. And then I print it. If you were just being asked to print, you could just print the letters one at a time instead of putting them in a string. But this one I went from the end and worked backwards. There's different ways to do these things. I'm just showing you different. Here's another one. It's checking for stuff inside of another string. I'm counting how many XOs there are and how many less than 3s, the heart things there are. So I set two variables, the C and the D. And this method is checking if there's the same number of XOs as there are hearts. So we count in the for loop. If the substring I comma I plus 2 equals XO, we add 1 to C. Same thing for the heart thing. And then I'm just saying return C equal D. That will return true if they're the same and false if they're not the same. Questions about this? I think I'm highlighting an important part of this. If you're going to do substring I comma I plus 2, you can't just say I less than str.length, because if you try to do substring plus 2, you go off the end of the string and Java will crash. So this, notice this is like if the string was 5 characters long, the highest we would want this number to be, it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that'd be fine. And it's okay to go substring 4 comma 5. That'll just give you character 4. But you can't do 4 comma 6. So we have to do a -1 here to account for the plus 2 up here. It's just the way it is. You'll find out. All right. I'm not teaching you anything more today, but we've got a bunch of programs to write. 4, in fact. One where you're adding up the digits of a number. You have to use modulo and division to do that. And then 3 practice REPLs where you're doing a bunch of stuff that I ask you to do. So I'll stop the recording.